Now, 1996 to 2001, now remember, I was with Realtor.com and with the National Association of Realtors, and in 1996, when that whole thing collapsed, what I knew is that there was nobody online. That there were only 20 million people online, and that people had to go online and they had to learn about the web, and they had to learn about email because nobody was using email. And I thought I was fanatical about this. I thought this was a miracle. That you could bring all the people in the world, all the information in the world is available at the push of a button at the speed of light. That this was an incredible thing, and people just didn't realize it yet. And so we actually changed the name of our company because we knew we had to go out and talk to people, but people didn't want to listen to us, so we figured we had to be crusaders about this. That we needed to go out there and be fanatical about the internet and the World Wide Web and where it was going. And so we changed the name of our company to Internet Crusade. And we went out across the country teaching people how to go online, how to use the internet. And I know it's hard to believe today, but that was the environment that we lived in at the time. We created this website called Realtown. It's still there. If you get a chance, go to realtown.com. We started selling domains and email. We still do that. Go to myrealtown.com if you get a chance, because we've been doing this longer than anybody else in the industry. And we had this idea about content in context. People that can then share and collaborate, and they'll create a culture and a community. And that's exactly what we see happening today. But we had this idea back in the 90s, and so we were out on the road preaching the gospel of the internet. There's that picture of Bob Goldberg, 2001, 2000. Oh, I know why that's there. And so in 2001, the National Association of Realtors, they had created a course the year before called ePro. And it was to teach realtors about technology. And that program wasn't set up the way it should have been set up, and the company that was delivering the services to the National Association of Realtors went bankrupt. And so NAR looked around, Bob Goldberg looked around, he said, who can I turn to that understands realtors, that understands training? And Bob and I had worked together at RIN, so Bob called me. And he said, can you help us? Can you put together a course? Can you help us with ePro? Can you go back and service the 4,000 people that we've already sold this course to? And so within a 3-month period of time, my partners and I put together a course called ePro for realtors, and over 9 years we enrolled over 70,000 people in that course to teach them how to use email, how to use websites, all these things that were important. As a matter of fact, we're going to take that course material and we're going to make it available on Realtown very shortly. So if you go to the Realtown site, take a look for that old ePro course material. I think you'll find it very interesting. So we got that ePro contract. That allowed us to go out and continue to talk to realtors about technology in the space. Now, in about 2005, what happened is we got the second generation of portals. Now, some of the first generation survived. Realtor.com was a first generational portal. It survived. As a matter of fact, Realtor.com was the first site to do syndication, distribution. Realtor.com was syndicating to America Online before we ever used the word syndication to describe the distribution of listings. And then Zillow, in the early 2000s, Zillow popped up, and Zillow was about voyeurism. Zillow knew that people, actually Zillow has done a great job. Zillow knew that people like to look at houses, and that they didn't necessarily like to buy them, but they like to look at them. And they knew that eyeballs were important on the web. And so Zillow came up with the idea of telling people what their homes are worth, showing people different kinds of houses they would never buy. But remember, it's voyeurism. What's called real estate on the web became like porn, right? Where people would go just to look at this stuff and eyeballs. And then Trulia used a little different approach. Trulia used the search engine optimization. Trulia was very successful, later purchased by Zillow. Homes.com, they're still around. They were one of the originals. They survived. Now then what happened was all of these entities started to charge fees for the leads generated. They monetized the traffic to the listings by selling it back into the industry. And so here's what happened. Realtor.com, remember I went to Austin, I got the listings, and Realtor.com was going to charge $2 a listing per month. But in 1996, when we launched Realtor.com, and the listings started to go out on the site, actually before Microsoft decided that the way it would compete, remember Microsoft had a website called Home Advisor. Microsoft decided that the way it would compete, it would charge nothing. And so before we were able to charge any money to Austin, Home Advisor came out and said, we'll do it for free. Of course, realtors love free. And so the concepts that we laid out there and the dangers that we laid out there, free superseded all of it. And so nobody listened. And they all decided they would just put their listings anywhere. And we warned them, just think about this. The first Realtor.com model was, we're going to take your listings, we're going to put them on the web, we're not going to put pictures of your competitors around your listing, because we're going to monetize this by charging you $2 a listing a month. We don't have to sell leads. And we're not going to put your competitors' pictures up, and any lead that comes from your listing, you're going to get the lead. How many of you would pay $2 a listing per month to Zillow today to eliminate the pictures of all of your competitors and to have every lead that looks at your listing on Zillow come directly to you for $2 a listing a month? And that's rhetorical, because everybody that sells real estate today would do that, because Zillow, everybody goes to Zillow. And our model initially, that's what it called for. But when free jumped into the marketplace, it destroyed the other business models. And in fact, that was part of what led the board of directors to decide to sell and to let Realtor.com go and to close REN down. Because how do you make any money if what you're doing is free? Well, what happens is people figure out how to make money, and they figured it out. They're going to sell leads back to agents. How many of you hate paying for your leads? Particularly hate paying for the leads that come off of the data that you put up there. Well, it's because you jumped to free. And then free led to paying for leads on the internet. So around 2007, syndication became a big thing. In 2008, January of 2008, I took a position as the chief executive officer of a company called Point2 Technologies. And we were going to build a syndication engine. Now, what is a syndication engine? You've heard of syndication. It's distribution of listing data. And so we look at all these different MLSs. If you look at that diagram, Netris and Link and Elbar.com and SRA, those are multiple listing services. Now remember, they all speak different languages. And so if you were going to draw data from all of those different sources, they all come in different languages. Now remember, there are people that want to receive all that data on the other side, like Zillow and Trulia and Yahoo and Realtor.com. They want to take that data and they want to display it, but they don't want to have to take that data and interpret it all. So there was a need for somebody to create a process that would, we call it, normalize the data, put it in one language, so that it can then be distributed to anybody who wants to use it with very little effort. And so at Point2, we created the capability to be able to go into all these multiple listing services, take that scrambled egg spaghetti of data and make it look like that smooth data coming out the other side. And that then made the way for syndication. Distribution trumps destination became our cry, where we said it's not about putting it in one place. Those days are gone, because people go everywhere now. They got search engines. So now you put it everywhere. And that is what this slide indicates. As a matter of fact, if you don't have a copy of this slide, you ought to get one and use it in your listing presentations, because it shows how you get exposure for your listings. The listing goes into wherever your multiple listing service, and then it is syndicated out to these different destinations. Syndication. Now, there's two types of syndication, opt-out and opt-in, and that was very controversial for a long period of time. Opt-in means an MLS might adopt syndication, but no listings go out. They tell the brokers, we are capable of syndicating. Tell us if you want your listings to go out. And if a broker says, I want my listings to go out, then it gets syndicated. That's opt-in, because they've opted in. Now, opt-out, that's the other process. Opt-out is the MLS gets ready to syndicate, and then they send all the data out, and they say to the brokers, we've sent your data out. If you don't want it out there, let us know and we'll bring it back. And so there were two ways to get the data out there. One was to get permission first. The other was to bring it down if you can't get permission. And so opt-out, we created opt-out syndication at Point2 in 2009 with Walt Bukowski. And in 14 months, we had accumulated over 1 million listings, which we distributed across the web. We distributed to Zillow. We distributed to Trulia. That most of the companies that wanted that data, we would distribute to them, and we didn't charge them anything to distribute that data. It was free, and that's the continuing model.